Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. I am here with Tim, and today we have a special guest. We have Mr. Nico Hernandez from WeSportin. Now, this is not the first time that the three of us have ever done a video together. Tim and I actually got our start on WeSportin. So for any of you who have seen Nico's videos on WeSportin, you have probably seen the three of us together, and you know that we make a dynamic trio. But I do have to thank Nico for the start that he gave us. Without him, really, Tim and I would not be here, and Running the Table really wouldn't be a thing. So we just got to give you a quick shout out real quick.
Much appreciated.
Of course. So today's episode is kind of a special one. We're taking a little break from NFL draft position breakdowns because after a while, those get a little boring. We are going to do a special episode. What went wrong with the Chicago Bears? Because the Bears, put it bluntly,
there's a lot that's gone wrong.
they're a train wreck, and there is a lot that's gone wrong. So today we are going to be taking a look at what exactly went wrong, where they are now, and potentially what they can do to fix it. Or if they can't, why is it broken beyond repair? So, Tim, this is a little callback to the NFL mock draft episode. There was a quote from you. You went, "I'm an exasperated Bears fan, but a Bears fan nonetheless." Let's just detail, why are you an exasperated Bears fan?
I mean, straight up biggest reason is like season in and season out. There's always seems to be some type of hope. The Bears are kind of similar to what the Cubs were for years and years and years. Oh, there's always promise. It's like, oh, this year's going to be our year. We're going to break out, do something. And then the year comes, things happen. It's always some type of letdown, whether or not it be a massive one or they come up just short of something they should. And I think the biggest disappointment is the fact that there's aspects of like this team that have such promise, their defense being the first one. And it just feels like some of these guys and some of their careers are just being put to absolute waste, drowning in a franchise that doesn't know what to do with them. That's the biggest reason why I'm exasperated.
So, Tim, let me just ask you, how the hell did we get to this point? How did the Bears get so bad that cult legend Jim McMahon went on a podcast and say that the Chicago Bears are where quarterbacks go to die? How did we get here?
I mean, biggest thing for me is the biggest problem for me with the franchise right now is GM Ryan Pace. And I feel like a lot of Bears fans will agree with me. I don't necessarily hate a lot of other aspects of the franchise. Coaches have come and gone. I don't necessarily dislike Nagy for what he's done so far, although some things I know a lot of people don't like a lot of his play calling. But realistically, from the front office down is where the problems have started realistically. Because in one of the big problems that the Bears have had recently is drafts. That's where in the past, I would say 5 or so years, pushing back even a little bit further, they've really had little to no success whatsoever. Some successes here and there, and I think we'll get into that. But the biggest problem for me is the front office. And when you don't have a successful front office or one that knows what they're doing, you're really kind of putting the entire franchise out on an island. Like you can't overpower those guys in like decision making. So their decisions really come down to the final choice for everything in this team. So realistically, I have significant problems with the higher organization of the Chicago Bears.
Mm-hmm. Nico, what's your take on this?
Well, I've seen throughout the years that the Chicago Bears were a team with much promise that never lived up to the potential due to a lot of overpaid contracts, a lot of people who, let's say, for instance, back in 2018, we saw the Chicago Bears as one of the most dominant defenses in the world. And we thought to see them being one of, destroying teams for years to come. And it's just in the midst of a massive second, as soon as Cody Parkey missed that, I feel like that was just the downfall of the Chicago Bears. And here's the thing, and I'm going to just point out the problem. Their defense has always stayed to be elite and dominant. We know that. Khalil Mack, Raekwon Smith, Kyle Fuller. What have they done for that offense? Nothing. They haven't given their best receiver anything to work with. They've given Mitchell Trubisky nothing
They
at
barely
all.
wanted to pay their best receiver, the only one that's doing anything for their offense.
And quite frankly, he is wanted out of town for the past year and a half. And even
for good reason.
Tagged him, he was clearly upset to be playing on the franchise tag.
Mm-hmm. And I think for one thing too is just there's a a lot of miscommunications on even who the leader is on the offense. I mean, they're switching quarterbacks in and out with Trubisky, Foles.
Yeah,
who do you listen to in that locker room?
And now we've just introduced Dalton. So how will that affect the dynamic this year with not only you switching guys back and forth last year, especially one of the most interesting things about last year is the switching out essentially an undefeated quarterback at the time, which to me, I actually agreed with it because full disclosure, I am not a big Mitch Trubisky fan. Some Chicago fans are, some Chicago fans aren't. I'm one of the ones that aren't. Despite his success in the beginning of that season there, I didn't attribute that to him. And I think it's pretty clear that not many of their wins last year were attributed solely to their offensive attack. Well, it's really been kind of the combination of what their defense can hold teams to do and just how much can you get out of that offense.
Yeah, Tim, I think a real part of the Bears' failure as a product on the football field really comes from that revolving door of quarterbacks that they've experienced really their entire franchise. But to just highlight like the past 5 years or so, you move on from Jay Cutler, you sign Mike Glennon to a 3-year, $45 million deal, who at that point was a career backup that really didn't show anything. And then you go out with the 3rd overall pick, you trade up for Mitch Trubisky when you clearly, as well pointed out, have Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson to be later drafted, who have both turned out phenomenally. Mitch Trubisky is gone, a backup in Buffalo. And then because the Mitch Trubisky thing didn't exactly plan out how they panned, to be, you bring in Nick Foles, you trade a 4th-round pick for him to Jacksonville, you eat a big chunk of that
big
salary.
Contract.
And even with Trubisky gone, you still have Foles on the roster. And then you go out and sign Andy Dalton. And even still, there's still some rumblings that they may go draft a quarterback in this draft. Like, what? Really?
Well, I want to say, first of all, Nico, I saw you putting up the 2. For those people who didn't follow like the history of the Bears particularly clear, they actually did have the 3rd pick, but they traded up 1 pick to the 2nd pick specifically to draft Trubisky, which is one of the most mystifying things for me of all time, because I don't think, honestly, it could have been, I believe, was it the 49ers at the time who had the 2nd pick?
Yeah, which the 49ers.
I think the 49ers, they legitimately essentially tricked the Bears into thinking that they were going to take Trubisky, so that they decided that they were so desperate enough to trade up that 1 pick and lose even more just to pick Trubisky. Because in my mind, if you wanted to pick Trubisky at that point, he would have been available 3rd no matter what. But they decided that they needed that 2nd pick anyway, which of course,
whether that's
smart
planning on the part of the 49ers to put up that smokescreen to convince the Bears.
Absolutely. Full credit to them.
Or the incompetence of the Bears to not realize that there were other options available in that 1st round and be so convinced to stake their
that he was the answer
on
and only him
from North Carolina that had only started one season. I think it was 13 collegiate games. They were so convinced that they had to trade up and give future assets to a quarterback that, yes, made a Pro Bowl, but outside of that has shown nothing.
If I could say something really quick, I think we're looking at a very similar movie that we saw back in that year that Trubisky was being picked to this year. Let's play the set real quick. With the number 2 pick, the Jets have that pick. Who's at that pick that's projected is Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson only played the amount of games that Trubisky did. Zach Wilson had the same amount of competition as Mitch Trubisky did, who plays at UNC.
The similarities
there are striking similarities, but one of the things I think we lack to mention going into the draft, the one thing that for some reason, and here's what I never got out of Trubisky's crazy rising draft stock going into that draft.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
They said he had crazy accuracy, which quite frankly, he has never really shown in the NFL.
He was lauded in college for, I believe, his accuracy and his ability to read defenses, neither of which translated to the NFL.
I'm going to go play college football.
Which is kind of mind-boggling.
Zach Wilson to me has a little bit of a different trajectory because of the fact that I find him to be a more complete athlete and a more complete quarterback than Trubisky ever was.
But I feel like we said the same thing about Trubisky, and look what happened.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't know who said that, but I can tell you I certainly never said that because I don't think many people who actually
all right. We're getting off topic. This isn't an NFL quarterback draft analysis. We already have that video up on the channel. This is a what went wrong with the Bears video, and the quarterback is obviously a very big part. We got into the front offense. Their incompetence has been very, very obvious. So then I pose this question to either one of you. Tim, I'll let you go first because you're the Bears fan. How do they fix it? And is it even fixable?
It depends on how you look at it. To me, it comes down to whether or not the franchise itself, and that is mainly the highest of all high front office, being like the owners and whatnot, is willing to make drastic changes within the front office. If they are willing to do that, to move on from Ryan Pace and perhaps even some of the other high-ranking members of that front office, then I think they can. But the problem is, I don't think they will be able to fix it until they do that, because a lot of like the business environment now that's involved in the Chicago Bears is just like this swirling, repetitive story of the hope, the potential to become something big, drafting a guy here or there that has potential that they're going to take the risk. This is going to be their big move that pushes us into the spotlight. And then it always ends up turning back. So quite frankly, I think it truly comes down to whether or not they will be able to make the changes necessary within the front office, because I don't trust that front office to make any decisions regarding the rest of the team, whether that be coaches, staff, drafting players, anything will be able to make the difference in turning the tide of this team and the franchise. Nico?
So I think the Bears, okay, so first and foremost, the first thing that they have to fix is everything. That's their main focal issue. What I think the Bears need to do is, listen, Allen Robinson does not want to play for you guys, and stop ruining his career. He doesn't want to be there, and obvious to God, that poor man's been through too much. Take him out already of his misery. Ship him, get a couple –
Blake Bortles and –
Trubisky, Glennon, dude, that man
hasn't had a great history. No,
that poor man gets 1,000-yard receiving yards every year off of the worst quarterbacks you can ever think of. Send him off. Get some draft capital. Build up. There is no reason.
That's the one thing I would disagree with.
Well, let me just
because the Bears can't draft, so I don't want more draft capital.
Okay, but here's the thing, though. Why would you, okay? So what? You're going to cut Allen Robinson and just give him away?
No, I would rather try to trade for players, because at least then I could try to get guys that have
players.
How old is Allen Robinson? How old is Allen Robinson? He's 29. He's 29.
Yeah, he's not that old, so you could get some decent value for him. He's got quite a few years left on him, I would say.
So okay. So anyways, I say get some draft capital. Obviously, you're going to get maybe a second. You're not going to get a first for him. You're going to get like around a second. I say
he's a premier wide receiver in the league.
Yeah, but let's be honest. The Bears are going to probably trade him to somewhere that doesn't have a good quarterback. So they'll probably ship him to Detroit or something where they have Jared Goff and ruin his career even more.
They would never ship him to in division. They would never ship him to another division member.
But anyways.
I just want to point out that Allen Robinson in free agency had a decision to make, either go to the Bears or the Packers, and he chose the Bears.
Well, I'm going to be honest, he probably didn't see
what a decision.
Yeah, probably took a long time to think about that one. Anyways, so I think, for instance, I want to kind of point it like this. And I hate to bring this team up because this team, you can't compare them to the Bears of the success that they had. I say you try to build like the Jacksonville Jaguars did when they had their Sacksonville season. You centered around a run-heavy offense. You get a guy that can just throw checkdowns. And so what if he can throw checkdowns? You have an elite running back. Now, obviously, is Leonard Fournette David Montgomery back then? Absolutely not. Could you shape that into a little bit? Of course. That obviously making another Leonard Fournette back in 2017 is not the hardest thing to rebuild if you just get some decent linemen and you just get a good running back. And I think for their defense, right now, what draft pick are they sitting at? What draft pick do you guys
20.
20th, I believe.
Sitting at 20.
Okay. At 20, you're going to see like maybe Elijah Vera-Tucker. You're going to see some good guards. You're going to see at least some good tackles. Maybe go, jump off the board and go Cosme, or you want to go Leatherwood, or you want to go with someone offensive tackle.
I stick with my pick that I chose for them, the Tevin Jenkins. I think that would be Tevin Jenkins. I think that would be a pretty decent pick for them. Especially the fact if you're talking about run offense, because I believe from what I remember, he's touted as being a better run offensive lineman than he is a pass offensive lineman.
There you go. And I say, for instance, too, and you guys can think I'm crazy, I say you can trade Cohen, and then you can go draft some guys like Gainwell that's coming into the draft soon.
That's not too terribly.
I don't think that's crazy because quite
too
frankly,
terribly crazy. They did sign.
They don't necessarily. I mean, yeah, Tariq Cohen. I said Tevin Cohen. Tariq Cohen. He's a pretty good returner, but quite frankly, to me, I don't think that he fits well enough into the Bears system anymore. Maybe he did at the time when they drafted him, or at least more so. But now with the way that they've turned, I don't think he fits into their system nearly as well. So if they could get some value out of him to a team that's looking for a returner as well as a back that they could use mostly just in the passing game, quite frankly, they were trying to use Tariq Cohen too much in the run game, and that's not his strength.
Now let me ask you this real quick, if you don't mind me asking. So you're the Bears. You go offensive line in the draft, first round. Do you go and draft someone like a Jamie Newman, a Kellen Mons? Do you go and get a third, fourth, late round talented quarterback that you could just, I don't know, Nick Foles breaks his collarbone again, or Andy Dalton just turns into Andy Dalton, and then do you look for a rookie maybe to substitute?
I think that's something that they could go after in the third or fourth round because, I mean, there are some decent options available. Like you said, Jamie Newman, Kellen Mond, maybe Felipe Franks. Dear God, not Kyle Trask, but that's probably who they pick.
Hey, man, Kyle Trask is great. You see how good Kyle Pitts did?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, I wonder why.
100%.
Maybe just because he's Kyle Pitts.
I say though, you trade Robinson, you make Darnell Mooney your number one wide receiver.
I really like Darnell Mooney. I think he's shown great potential. I've seen so many like just kind of like small video compilations of him just absolutely torching cornerbacks and balls just going over his head, out of bounds, just out of his reach. Like if you can get that damn man the ball, he can make things happen. But the problem is they haven't had somebody that can get him the ball yet. I think he could be a really good weapon for him.
And I think they need to go out and trade for Gardner Johnson too. Just putting it out there. He fights
great locker room guy.
Honestly, he fights all the Bears players. Just put him on the team already so you can avoid the.
So now you can have fights in practice.
Exactly. God, no.
That's great for team environment.
Well, I don't see you know what? I think the one thing, if there's anything that we have to take away from this discussion of what do the Bears need to fix, the answer
a lot.
Is simply literally everything.
Fire that dude that's general manager. I'm not a fan of
Ryan Pace. There's not many that are a fan of Ryan Pace anymore.
Is it Ryan Pace? Yeah, that dude should literally be crucified. Like he should not be allowed to play.
There are plenty of Bears fans who would absolutely agree with you right now.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
people say Dan Snyder sucks.
We could go on about the Bears forever and ever, but we only have so much time. And I think that'll just about wrap it up for today's episode. Thank you so much to Nico for coming on. For those of you who don't know, Nico, where can we find you?
You guys can find me at WeSportin Podcast on YouTube. If you want to follow my Instagram too, it's at WeSportin. If you want to follow TikTok, just take a guess of what it is. And yeah, go follow it.
Yeah, Nico's got a lot of great stuff. He's covering the draft. He has basketball, baseball, some college basketball. We all did that back in March. He's got some great stuff. And thanks to him for appearing on the video. But yeah, until next time, we out.